classes. Now, one of the things that I don't like that Java does is they have this new thing called classes, even though we've been saving and running our files, and one file we have is a .java file and another file is a .class file. Don't even put a comparison between the two, okay? The classes that we're going to do today is totally different than that .class extension. All right, so you typed in a couple of code listings and we worked with a program called Rectangle. Now, up to this point, we've been doing procedural programming, okay? Where I just start typing lines of code and I usually start at line number 1 and I come down through. Sometimes I'll jump around with if statements. Sometimes I jump around with loops or maybe even go to methods, all right? So I have all of those things we can do. Today we switch to something called object-oriented programming. And if you're a comp-sci major, this becomes a buzzword, something that you'll become familiar with, OOP, object-oriented programming. Now, what is it? Well, we're going to create these things called objects, all right? And a common word that you're going to hear is we're going to instantiate an object. And what is an object? Well, it's going to be a new data type. We have data types. We have int, okay? And we know there are things that I can do to int. Like I can add 2 ints, and I can do some work with ints. And we have all these basic data types. What we're going to do today is this object, we're going to create our own new data type. And in the code listings you've been working with, you have your own new data type. It's called rectangle. Now, what is in that rectangle? Well, first of all, it is this self-contained. You know, you're creating it, not somebody else, not somebody who created the string class. We're now creating our own class. What's going to be inside of our class? A bunch of fields, which are different types of data. And fields are just variables. Anything that we've learned so far, we can put inside of there. And it's what's going to be relevant to that particular class. Going back to rectangle, what is relevant to rectangle? Length and width. Everything else can be calculated, like area. It can be calculated on length and width. Perimeter, it can be calculated based on the length and the width. So all I need is length and width. Following that, I'm also going to have a bunch of methods, just like we did in chapter 5, that can work with those variables, those fields that I have stored in there. I might have a method, and as you saw, there's one called calculate area, which takes the current length and width and calculates a new area. So one of the things I don't want to have in there is a field called area. Why? Because say my length is 4, my width is 5, what's area? 4 times 5.
20.
20, thank you. But so right now in area, we'd have 20 stored. But what happens if length changes to 30? Well, my area is now wrong because it was relevant to the old length and width, not the new one. So that becomes what we call stale data. So that's why we don't make the area a field, only what's necessary. Okay, some terms you'll hear: code or data separation. That means it's hidden. We don't get to see it. Encapsulation and data hiding. So when we're working with a string, we don't see all the methods that go with the string or anything like that. So that's sort of a class that was created that we can use. All right, class now. We can specify the fields and methods, and when we do it, each object is an instance. So when you did your third code listing, you had several objects. You had like living room and dining room, and they were all unique. All right, that's a quick overview. Let's start to get into some of the pieces. All right, when I'm getting a class ready, I'm going to create something called a UML chart. UML is Unified Modeling Language. It's common, It's what we use when we're creating classes. If I give you a UML chart, the class is easy to make. All right, how is it written up? It's written in a rectangle, and then it's subdivided. At the very top of the rectangle, we have the name of the class, and the name is rectangle. I know some of you that worked on the code listings, and you're doing a great job of putting your initials in front of your programs, tried to put your initials in front of rectangle, and it didn't work. Because it has to be this specific name, rectangle. When we write our demo program, we're going to create objects of type rectangle, which means when I create an object or instantiate an object, I'm going to have a unique length and a unique width for my fields. Now, some things that are going on. I'm going to put minuses in front of the length and the width. And the reason for that is when I put a minus, that means it's private. Okay? That means that length and that width is private to that program. It's not really a running program, but it's a class, and they're private to there. And in my demo program, I can't refer to that length or that width. They're tucked away. They're hidden, data hiding. Okay, so over in my demo program, sure, I can have a variable called length. Has nothing to do with this length because I made it private. Okay, I'm putting a minus sign in front of it in my UML chart. If I put a plus sign in front of it in my UML chart, what does that make it?
Adjustments to current trip.
Public. Public. Yeah, that means over in my demo program, I'm able to use it. All right. Well, what is it I'm going to be able to use? Well, I'm going to create a bunch of methods, part of my class, that work with the fields in my class, and I'm going to make all of these methods public. So I'm going to put plus signs in front of them. So now I'm taking this UML chart that I had written as rectangle, underline, length and width, which were my fields, underline, and then a bunch of methods, set length, set width, and get area. So I know this class, it's going to be a separate program. It's going to have two fields, length and width, and right now 5 public methods.
As you see this tiny little pad up here on the left hand.
All right, I'm going to go grid view, and I'm going to say that's Ryan. And Ryan, you're now muted. And it's a little quieter. Okay, questions? So far, so good? Hopefully some of the stuff that you did in the code listings will make sense. All right, so I'm now showing you a new UML chart. It's a big rectangle. It's called circle, underline. I have one variable, one field, as it's properly called. It's radius. And I'm even going to say I want to make that a double. So in my UML chart, I now have minus, radius, double. So I know what I'm working with. I'm going to have 3 methods. I'm going to make those public. Set radius, get area. Okay, so before I get ready and create the class and create a demo program, I am going to talk about something called an accessor method. That's a get, okay? And that returns value. So when I say get radius, that'll run over to my class and say, hey, what's the radius? And it'll return it. I'm going to have sets, which are called mutator methods. They change values. So in my demo program, I'm going to ask the user, what is the radius? Then I'm going to call that mutator method set radius. It's going to send a value over to my class, and it's going to store that value in my field called radius. As I mentioned a little while ago, we have a difference between private, which only inside of the class can use, and public, which the demo program can use. Could I make my fields public? Yeah, I don't want to. Might I have methods that are private? Yeah, they may be methods I want to write that only other methods in my class can use and not in my demo program. Couple of things must be in the same folder. The class and the demo, they have to be in the same folder. Multiple objects have unique fields. Okay. I'm ready to write circle, but I want to do this one first. So if I want to instantiate an object in my demo program, I say rectangle. Let's say R1 equals new rectangle and empty parentheses. Now, hopefully some of you recognize this whole blah, 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 blah equals new, blah, blah, and those two were the same, and then this became my name, because we've seen this instantiating an object a couple of places up to this point. We just never really knew what it meant. So when I do this, rectangle, R1 equals new rectangle, that means I have for R1 a certain length and a certain width. Okay, so R1 has its own length and its own width. If I now do another object, rectangle, R2 equals new, don't say D2. Thank you. Rectangle. R2 is a new object and it has its own length and width. Okay, the length and width for R2, different than the length and width for R1. So I could keep making objects and they would keep being unique with their lengths and their widths. Okay, let's see what we have. I'm going to switch to here. I'm going to share screen. And I just told myself I would like to create a class called Circle. And I'm now in JGrasp and I have a program, there's nothing in it, but it's called circle.java. And most of the time we want our classes to start with a capital. So this is Circle. The one you worked on in class was called Rectangle. Then I'm going to have a second program called Circle Demo, which is going to be how I demonstrate using the objects from the circle I create. All right, so at this point in our UML chart, we've talked about I need to put in fields and I want to put in methods. All right, so I'm going to have a field. So what do I have? I have public class circle. I have a beginning brace and an ending brace. Nothing inside of there. I'm going to have a field. What field will I use for circle? So if I was to ask you anything about circle, what is it you absolutely have to know?
The radius.
The radius. Give me a data type for radius.
It'll be a double.
I'm going to go with a double. And what should we make it, public or private? Well, we don't want our main program to screw it up.
Yeah, so it'll be private.
So we're going to go private. Why is my caps lock on? Private. I'll slow down. Double radius. Okay. What else do I need to know about a circle? Say nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing, right? Anything else I want to know about a circle? The diameter, the circumference, the volume of a ball, anything. All of it can be found by using just the radius. Okay, so I have my circle, public class circle. That's the name of my class. I have a field, private double radius. He was in the Army. Get it? No, never mind. Now I'm going to have my methods. I want to have a method to set the radius. So I'm going to go back because I don't like to mess up. And oh, look at that. I just happen to have rectangle somewhere close. And I see when I create this, I do public void. What's missing from the methods from before?
Static.
Static, right. So I want to do public void, and then I'll go from there. So I come back to my class. public void, and I'd like to set the radius. Now this is a method, and it's one where I'm going to have a value coming in. So I'm going to do parentheses, left brace, What am I trying to say here?
Is it not a
It's
parenthesis?
a parentheses, yes. I got ahead of myself. Double, and I need a variable name here. Just make something up related to radius.
R.
R, and that's fine, okay? So inside of this method, I'm going to say, all right, so the radius that's in my class, radius, is going to get the value of R. So when I do that, it's now set.
So what did you do?
Excuse me?
What exactly did you type for that? You have,
Okay, I have public void set radius.
ah,
And I have one thing in my parameter list, double R. So in the demo program, when it calls this,
okay.
it's going to be passing R over. Now,
Yeah.
R comes over and lands in the class. And now in line 16, I say radius equals R.
Yep.
So I change the value of the field that's in my class. Well, if I'm over in the demo program and I'd like to know what it is, because I can't get it because it's private, I now need public void get radius. Help me out. What am I going to have inside of here? And then we have to make a change.
Probably
If I want
an input dialog box.
Nope. I already know what the radius is, right?
It's going to be R, just R.
I'm going to return what my radius is. So that means I need to go up here and say public double, because I want to return what the radius is. So now over in my demo program, well, let's go to our demo program. I have circle demo. All right, what do I have over here? I'm big on my skeleton. So I have import javax.swing.jOptionPane. I have public class circle demo. I have my public static void main string args, and I have string input, comma, outstra, because I like outstra, equals double quotes. So I'm all ready to roll here with what I want to put in this program. I have a section below for methods if I need any methods, and I have some extras. So over here in my demo, I want to make this make sense with my string class over there. I'm going to do a JOptionPane. So I'm going to use my input string, and I'm going to put Control V. Uh-oh, wrong spot. Control V, input JOptionPane, show method. What is the radius of your circle? All right, so inputs now string. I know I'm going to need to do a conversion. So what should I call my radius? Back up to the declaration section, double radius. Is that fine to use radius? Is it going to get mixed up with the one that's in the class?
Nope.
Nope, because the one in the class is private. It's totally separate, and it's at a different memory location. All right, so now I say input JOptionPane show input dialog box, radius equals double dot parse double. When you see an error, you have to let me know.
You need to put input inside the parentheses.
Thank you. I'm just curious. I want to, can at this point, I just go for a quick run, like a quarter of a mile. Now I'm going to run it, make sure what I have is good. It wants me to input a string. I said, okay, fine. So that code works. I'm happy. Now, I want to instantiate a new object. Okay, so it's going to be of the circle class. So I'm going to put capital C, circle. Now, I need a variable name. What would you like to call it? Circ1, in case we have more than one of them. Circ1 equals new circle. Okay, so I instantiated an object of the circle class. Now I just got a radius, so I'm going to say circ1, that's my object, dot, now I'm going to use a method. I'm going to say set radius, radius, sorry about the spelling, and I want to send over that value. So circ1 dot set radius, radius says go over to my class and make the radius whatever I just inputted. Okay, so far so good. Now what if I was curious what that radius was? I need to have a new value out here. I'm just going to say double, I'm ahead of myself again, R, just doing R, and then I'm going to come down into my code and say R equals circ1 dot get radius, so that it calls the method over there get radius and says, hey, what's the current radius over there? It's going to return it. It's going to store it in R, and now I need to put in a little output of J option pane.show message dialog null comma outstra. Okay, well in this case, what's my out string going to be? I need to create that. outstr equals double quote. Here is the radius plus radius. Any mistakes in there?
You need a capital S at your message dialog on outstra.
Thank you. And I spelled it wrong as well. outstr. All right, with a little luck, I created an object called circ1. I'm going to get the value of it, and I'm going to send that value over to my class to store it in radius. I'm going to use circ1.setRadius. Now, if I want to get it back, I'm going to call circ1.getRadius, no parameters. It was a void method, and it's going to return the R. Is it going to work? I hear drum rolls. Brrr, and it compiles. What is it? 10. And here's the radius, 10. Okay, so they're working hand in hand. So I have a demo program that's proving that my circle class is working. So now that the circle class works, anybody that wants to use it can go and instantiate an object of type circle. Well, my circle class right now is kind of boring. It doesn't do much. But I did say I'd like to have some other methods. For example, public. Give me another thing that I might want to do with the radius.
Get diameter.
Okay, double D-U-O-B-L-E, get diameter. And I'll do that all the way out. And in order to get the diameter, what am I going to do? I'm going to return, what is the diameter?
Radius times 2.
Radius, whatever that current radius is, times 2. All right. I'm going to go back over to my demo, and I'm going to create a new variable, double R. Let's call this one, what did you, diameter. I can use the whole name. I'm a pretty good typer. All right, so in my program, I had, after I set the radius, I could do something like diameter equals circ1 dot get diameter. I wasn't sending anything over because the radius is already over there. I just need to return the radius. Outstra equals, here is the diameter, space double quotes, plus diameter, plus, how do I do a carriage return? Double quote, /n.
Yep.
And then down on my next line, I should probably do, well, why don't I switch these? outstr, a plus, and then I'll put this line second. All right, let's get rid of this guy. So now I'm creating outstra equals, here's the diameter plus, here is the radius plus plus double quotes slash n double quotes, and then here's the diameter. And then I'm going to have that in my outstra. So I have a question. What would be good test data here? Uh-oh, why'd I mess up?
You should, yeah.
I have an equals, it should be a plus. Let's try it one more time. Test data. I'm thinking 10's easy, it doubles. Here's the radius 10, here's the diameter 20. Questions? What else could we find for circle? What else could we add to circle? We have get the radius, you know, we need that. We have the diameter, you know, we call get diameter. What else do you know about a circle? Nothing?
The circumference.
Circumference? Okay. So I'm thinking that we need the circumference. So I'm going to go back over the class and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to document circumference, area, volume of a sphere, etc. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to save the circle that we just did. I'm going to save the circle demo that we just did. And I'm going to ask you, would you rather try to do this from scratch in a small group, or would you rather get what I post with these two and modify it? What do you think?
Modify it.
Modify it? Everybody else okay with that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop the video.